And so I want to introduce you to a model right here. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. If you're familiar with the Dunning-Kruger effect at all, let me explain to you what this is. What this is in 1999, these two guys, Dunning and Kruger, they published the results of a test that they did. It was they ran an experiment. What they did is they'd bring people together and they would administer tests, and they would say, before you took the test, they would ask you how much knowledge you had about the topic that you were about to be tested on, right? And so like they'd say, okay, Jeff, how much do you know about trigonometry? And I'd be like, how do you spell it, right? And they'd be like, okay, limited, right? And then they'd be like, how much do you know about first century Christianity? And be like, oh, what do you want to know? Right? And be like, okay, high. So they would look at how much competence do you have in that? How much knowledge do you have in that, right? And then, okay. Then you would take the test. And then they would say, okay, Jeff, how do you think you did on trigonometry? And I'd like, once I saw it, I realized it's just math. So I probably got like a 50 on it. And they'd be like, that's interesting. You got a 12. Oh. And then, well, how do you think you did on the first century development of Christian theology? And I'm like, there's some things in there I hadn't really thought too much about. And so maybe an 85. And they're like, interesting, because you got a 96. And so what they began to notice as they administered these tests is that the less knowledge you had, the higher your confidence was. And the more knowledge you had, the lower your confidence came down. So, there's this chart. And I've added some things to it as I've thought about this and talked about it and processed it and all that kind of stuff. And so what happens is, if you look at this model, you start out and immediately you shoot up to the pinnacle of certainty. So let's look at Paul for a second, right? We're using Paul as our example. So Paul, he has a significant emotional event on the road to Damascus, and he thinks he's got it all figured out. Because, heck, I'm a Pharisee. I know. I got the Messiah stuff figured out, right? And so he goes out, and it tells us, in the book of Acts, it tells us he begins to teach in Damascus. And lo and behold, you know what the response is from the people he's teaching to? They decide that they need to kill him.